If you're spending extra money on premium cat food because you want the best for your cat, you think you're making the right choice, don't you? You read the labels. You avoid the cheap stuff. You might have even switched to grain-free or organic. And honestly, that seems responsible. But here's what the pet food industry doesn't want you to know. Some of the foods marketed as healthiest, the ones with the beautiful packaging and the wholesome-sounding ingredients, are actually creating slow, invisible damage inside your cat's body. And the scariest part? Most veterinarians won't catch it until years of harm have already been done. Let me be clear. This isn't about the obvious junk food for cats. This is about the products sitting in the premium aisle, the ones with veterinarian photos on the bag, the ones your friends recommend. And at least one of them is probably in your cabinet right now. Let's start with the one that fooled millions of cat owners, including some vets. Did you know that the grain-free food trend, the one that swept through pet stores like a health revolution, might be connected to a deadly heart condition in cats? Here's the story most cat owners never heard the ending to. Around 2007, grain-free pet foods exploded in popularity. The marketing was brilliant. Cats are carnivores. They don't need grains. This is what nature intended. And on the surface, that logic sounds perfect. So millions of owners switched, paying premium prices for grain-free formulas, thinking they were finally feeding their cats the right way. But then the FDA started investigating. In 2018, they announced they were looking into a potential link between grain-free diets and dilated cardiomyopathy, or DCM, a life-threatening heart condition where the heart muscle weakens and can't pump blood effectively. While most cases were in dogs, cats were affected too. Here's what researchers found. Many grain-free foods replace grains with legumes like peas, lentils, and chickpeas. And these ingredients may interfere with taurine absorption, an amino acid that's absolutely critical for feline heart health. Without enough taurine, a cat's heart literally begins to fail. The terrifying part? It happens silently. No symptoms until the damage is severe. A study published in the Journal of Veterinary Internal Medicine documented cases of cats on boutique, grain-free diets developing DCM despite technically adequate taurine levels in the food. Something about the formulation was blocking proper uptake. And the worst part? The packaging still says, complete and balanced. Technically, it passed feeding trials. But those trials are short-term, usually 26 weeks. They're not designed to catch what happens after 3 years of exclusive feeding. The fix isn't about demonizing grain-free entirely. It's about diversification. Don't feed one formula exclusively for years. Rotate proteins and brands. And if you're using grain-free, talk to your vet about taurine testing, especially if your cat has been on it long-term. Because natural isn't always the same as safe. Let me ask you something. Does your cat's food have salmon, tuna, or whitefish as the first ingredient? And have you been feeding that same formula for months or years? If so, you might be setting up a toxic accumulation problem that won't show symptoms until it's already serious. Here's what most cat owners don't know. Fish, especially larger species and fish caught in certain waters, can contain heavy metals like mercury and industrial pollutants called PCBs. In small amounts, occasionally it's fine. But when fish-based food is the daily staple, these toxins accumulate in your cat's tissues over time. Research published in the Journal of Feline Medicine and Surgery found detectable levels of mercury in cats fed fish-based diets long-term. And chronic mercury exposure can cause neurological problems, kidney damage, and gastrointestinal issues. The symptoms are vague at first: loss of appetite, lethargy, subtle behavioral changes. By the time it's obvious, the damage is done. But there's a second problem with fish-based foods, and this one surprised me when I first learned it. Many fish formulas are high in polyunsaturated fatty acids, which sounds healthy, right? Omega-3s are good. But in excess, without enough vitamin E to balance them, these fats can lead to a painful inflammatory condition called steatitis, also known as yellow fat disease. Affected cats develop painful lumps under their skin, fever, and reluctance to move. And it's almost entirely preventable by simply not feeding fish-based food as the exclusive diet. The good news? This is one of the easiest mistakes to fix. Use fish-based foods as rotation, not foundation. Stick to poultry or rabbit-based proteins as the main staple. And if your cat is absolutely obsessed with fish flavor, Limit it to 2 or 3 times per week, not twice a day for 5 years. Because what tastes like a treat to your cat might be building up a toxic load their kidneys were never designed to handle. Alright, this one's going to be uncomfortable, but stay with me. Has your vet ever prescribed a special therapeutic diet for your cat? Maybe for urinary health, kidney support, or weight loss. And did you just trust it completely because it came from a veterinarian? I want to be very careful here. Prescription diets can be life-saving in specific situations. But here's what's happening behind the scenes that most cat owners never question. Many of these foods are produced by the same major corporations that fund veterinary nutrition education. And the ingredients aren't always as clean as you'd assume for something labeled prescription. Let's take urinary health formulas. The goal is usually to acidify urine and reduce crystal formation. Great idea. But look at the ingredient list on some of the top-selling brands. You'll find corn gluten meal, brewer's rice, chicken byproduct meal. These are low-quality protein sources and high-carbohydrate fillers. For an obligate carnivore. Here's the problem. A study in the Journal of Animal Physiology and Animal Nutrition found that high-carbohydrate diets can actually contribute to obesity and diabetes in cats, even when portion-controlled. So you're solving one problem while potentially creating another. And it gets worse. Some prescription weight loss foods are so low in fat and protein, and so high in fiber, that cats need to eat more volume to feel satisfied, which defeats the purpose. And the protein restriction in some kidney diets, while well-intentioned, is now being questioned by feline nutrition researchers who argue that high-quality, highly digestible protein might actually be better than restriction. The point isn't that prescription diets are poison. It's that they're not magic, and they're not above scrutiny. If your vet prescribes one, ask questions. What specifically will this address? What are the trade-offs? Are there alternative approaches? Can we monitor blood work to see if it's actually working? Because blindly trusting a prescription label without understanding what's in it, or why, is just as dangerous as feeding gas station cat food. Maybe more, because you think you're doing everything right. If this is making you look at your cat's bowl differently, that's exactly why Whisker Wisdom exists. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the investigations that could add years to your cat's life. And stick around, because the next one is the mistake almost every caring cat owner is making right now. Pop quiz. You pick up a bag of cat food and the front says 40% protein. That's good, right? Your cat's a carnivore. Protein is what they need. So you buy it, feel great about your choice, and feed it every day. But here's the question nobody thinks to ask. Protein from what? Because not all protein is created equal. And this is where the pet food industry plays a brilliant linguistic trick. The guaranteed analysis on the label tells you the amount of protein. But it doesn't tell you the source or the bioavailability, meaning how much of that protein your cat can actually use. Let me give you an example. Imagine 2 cat foods. Both list 40% protein. Food A gets its protein from chicken, turkey, and egg. Food B gets it from corn gluten meal, soybean meal, and meat byproducts. Legally, both can claim 40% protein. But food B's protein comes from plant sources and low-quality animal parts that a cat's digestive system struggles to break down and absorb. Research on feline protein requirements published in the British Journal of Nutrition shows that cats need specific amino acids like arginine, methionine, and taurine that are abundant in animal tissue but absent or insufficient in plant proteins. Feeding a cat plant-based protein is like putting diesel in a gasoline engine. It might technically count as fuel, but the machine isn't designed to run on it. And here's where it gets insidious. Many brands inflate protein numbers using cheap fillers, then make up for the missing nutrients with synthetic additives. Your cat's body has to work harder to extract what it needs, and over years, that puts strain on the kidneys and liver. The fix? Stop reading the front of the bag. Flip it over and read the ingredient list. The first 5 ingredients should be recognizable animal proteins. Chicken, turkey, salmon, duck, beef. Not meals, not byproducts, not glutens. Whole, named protein sources. And if the label says chicken meal, that's actually okay, it's concentrated. But if it says meat meal, or poultry byproduct meal, without specifying the source, that's a red flag. Because if they're not proud enough to name it, you probably don't want to feed it. Here it is. The most controversial one. The one that's going to make some of you angry, and I need you to hear me out anyway. Because this is the mistake that's made with the absolute best intentions, and it's the one that can cause the most harm in the shortest amount of time. Raw feeding. The idea that cats should eat what they'd eat in the wild, raw meat, organs, bones. And on a philosophical level, I completely understand the appeal. It sounds pure, ancestral, real. But here's what most raw feeding advocates don't talk about, or don't know. Raw meat sold for human consumption is not the same as a whole prey item a cat would catch in the wild. And that difference matters desperately. First, the contamination risk. A study by the FDA's Center for Veterinary Medicine found that raw pet food is significantly more likely to contain dangerous bacteria like Salmonella, Listeria, and E. coli compared to commercially processed foods. And while your cat might handle it, you and your family are at risk every time you handle that food or clean the bowl. Immunocompromised people, children, elderly family members, they're all vulnerable. But the bigger issue is nutritional balance. A whole mouse contains muscle meat, organs, bones, fur, and stomach contents in very specific ratios. It's a complete meal. A bowl of raw chicken breast and some liver? That's not balanced. It's missing calcium, taurine levels might be insufficient, the phosphorus to calcium ratio could be destroying your cat's kidneys slowly. I've seen the Facebook groups. I've read the testimonials. My cat's coat is shinier. They have more energy. And I believe that's true for some cats in the short term. But anecdotal evidence is not the same as long-term safety data. And the research we do have is worrying. A study in the Journal of the American Veterinary Medical Association examined homemade raw diets and found that 95% were nutritionally deficient or imbalanced in some way. Not commercial raw brands following AFCO standards, homemade ones. And even some commercial raw brands have been recalled for nutritional inadequacies and contamination. Here's the hardest truth. Your cat doesn't care about food philosophy. They don't value natural over safe. What they need is food that supports organ function, provides complete nutrition, and doesn't expose them to preventable diseases. If you're passionate about raw feeding, I'm not telling you to stop. I'm telling you to do it right. Work with a veterinary nutritionist, not a Facebook group. Use commercially prepared raw brands that have passed AFCO feeding trials. Test your cat's blood work regularly. Handle the food with the same safety protocols you'd use for raw chicken in your own kitchen. Because the goal was never to feed the most natural diet. It was to give your cat a long, healthy life. And love doesn't balance a diet. Science does. At Whisker Wisdom, we're not here to shame your choices. We're here to give you information the industry won't. If this opened your eyes to something you didn't know, share it with another cat owner who's trying to do right by their feline. That's how we protect more cats together. Your cat's bowl is one of the most powerful health tools you have. Make sure what's in it is actually helping, not just marketed that way.